Hey everybody, Mark Burgess here, Big East Bass Fishing. Welcome back to the channel. And as always, thank you very much for tuning in and watching the videos. I really appreciate it. Staying with this theme this time of year, which is late February, coming into early March. Season's just about to get going. So a little while ago, I talked about some of the baits that I start out with this time of year. So going into a little bit more detail with some of those baits, I'm going to talk about the crankbait part of it, okay? So a lot of people don't like to throw crankbaits early in the season. And maybe it's because they haven't had a lot of success. And you know, they're shy away from it and they get bites on other style baits, and that's fine. But it's just one more tool in the toolbox that you can use to cover water at this time of year. So that being said, you can basically tailor the crankbait to the conditions. You hear a lot of guys talk about, you know, flat-sided crankbaits early in the spring. There's a lot of new ones, you know, on the market, the slims and things like that, flat sides, frit sides and what have you. Reason they work so well is because basically they don't put out a tremendous amount of action, okay? They're thin profile, and it's another bait that has more of a subtle action to it in a short space, okay? You can basically reel them slowly, and they don't overpower the situation, okay? It's not like a big, wide, wobbling crankbait that's displacing a ton of water, you know, and that they have their place, okay? But typically those type of crankbaits with that amount of action are for when the water is a lot warmer. So when it's cold, like we have now, you can still throw a crankbait and get bit. Cover is relatively sparse, you know, at this time of year. It hasn't grown up a lot from the bottom, and you can fish, you know, get to hard cover a lot easier. Lay down trees, rock piles, you know, things like that. Gravel, you know, bottoms and shell bars and stuff, and you're not going to get hung up in the grass trying to get to them, okay? So in addition to throwing some of those other baits that we talked about, jigs and so forth, you can also show them something in the form of a crankbait, okay? And they work very well. The ones that I like to start off with, okay, the flat sides, and again, you know, there's the frit side and the OG Slim and all these others. You know, Barmer's got a good one, you know, the flat A. You know, here's a shallow flat A in the crawfish pattern. Hopefully you can see that. You can see how thin that bait is. Crawfish colored, orange bottom. Again, I've upgraded the hooks from a number 6 to a number 4 aftermarket. Of course, you know, split ring, or you can use a clip. But this is a bait, it's 3 to 5 foot. And I said I can throw this out there. It is a floating bait. So I can basically, you know, it will slow fall up. I can put weight on it to keep it from doing that too fast. But I can pull this bait. I'm not casting it out and reeling it just straight back to the boat. I can cast it out and I can pull it down to where it's going to contact some cover, rock pile. Not typically a bait I'm going to pull through brush, but heavy wood is fine. It doesn't work as well as a square bill, but around that type of cover, and then I'm using the rod tip. Okay, so I crank it down, boom, I contact the bottom, and then I'm just going to pull it with the rod. It's going to come up, it's going to slowly swim up. I'm going to pull it with the rod tip, just short, 6, 8, 12 inches, keeping it in the strike zone as long as I can. It's a very tight wiggle to it. Okay, so that's what makes it attractive to the fish. Is more of a deep dive bomber, flat A, deeper diver in a shad, more of a shad pattern again, but you see the thin profile. Those, like I said, those style baits work extremely well just because you can keep them in the strike zone and they have a real subtle action to them. This time of year is what you want. So staying with that, of course, you know, you got your rattle trap style bait. This is a rattle trap, crawfish colored, and same thing. I mean, you can buy versions of this that float, even sinking. It's not something you're casting out there and reeling right straight back to the boat. Okay, this is something that you're using the rod to work it. You know, if it happens to go down and get caught in a little bit of grass, or maybe this time of year you'll have a lot of dead leaves on the bottom. If it happens to hook one of those, you can snap it. Just snap it right up with the rod. It'll pull free of the cover, and a lot of times that's when you get a bite. Okay, so this style bait works extremely well at this time of year. Again, thin profile, a lot of action in a small space. Okay, line size. I mean, for this style of bait, I like to use 15 to 17 pound tests this time of year. When it's warmer and you're fishing in maybe some heavy grass, I'll go to 20. But you know, you can get away with that 15 to 17 pound fluorocarbon, medium heavy rod, and that's 7.72 length. Gear ratio reels, you know, 7 to 1. Even 6.2 is fine to get the job done. If you are around a lot of heavy cover, you can replace these hooks with short shank. All right, so that's going to keep the hook a little bit tighter to the bait. You won't get hung up as much, and still get the job done. So, and you know, back to this flat side baits. Typically, I can throw this on 8 to 10, 12 pound, again, depending on what you're fishing around, okay, and how deep you want it to go. Now, the water gets a little warmer, mid 40s to mid 50s. That's when I'm going to a little bit more action bait. This here is one of my favorite wiggle warts. It's a very natural crawfish colored bait. Wide wobble. Again, I'm matching the conditions. This has a lot more action than these flat sides, but is absolutely deadly when the water's in the 50s. Okay, so. And that can happen very often here in the Northeast. I mean, water temperatures really swing widely, and you can get there relatively quickly. So a square bill, again, it's just starting to come into that time period. This is a Norman, crawfish colored square bill. So this particular bait, like, you know, when you get into this time of year, fish love to hold on wood and shallow rock and things like that, because it warms up so much quicker from the sun. And it's a bait that you can show them other than, you know, a Sanko or a jig, you know, heavily pressured water. You know, you'll get some bites that other guys don't get because, you know, they're not throwing, you know, a crankbait in that situation. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot more about crankbaits, which is something I love to do. I love throwing crankbaits, fish them a lot. A lot of people are intimidated by them because they feel like it's a deep, you know, situation, but it's not. I mean, shallow cranking is just, you know, some of the best fishing, best bite you can get. So we're going to talk a lot more about that in the future. All right, so those are the crankbaits that I typically start off with in the spring, and you know, give it a shot and get you a few more bites. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And hopefully we'll see you out on the water soon.